this week, I really want to go over how to train your spinal erectors properly. So a lot of people are going to get a ton of spinal erector development just from traditional deadlift and hinge patterns because they are there as a postural muscle. So that is awesome. It's great. Some people, some instances need a little bit more direct spinal erector training, whether it's just for general health, being able to move their spine freely, independently, or maybe they actually need a little bit more hypertrophy. Maybe they're a competitor and they need their spinal erectors to grow compared to their lats or their glutes. Whatever the case may be, what we typically do whenever we're performing any kind of hinge or any kind of bent over position, we always lock our spine into place. That's what we're told. We were told, don't flex, don't extend, keep everything nice and rigid and tight and bound up. It's totally fine for protecting your spine under load, 100%. So if we're performing an RDL, what we typically will do is we'll keep everything nice and rigid. We'll keep our abs tight, our glutes contracted. No movement through the spine is the goal here, because if we were to flex and extend and be like all Gumby-like, there's a high chance of injury, especially if you are going really heavy, adding a lot of load. We don't want that. We want to minimize risk of injury. So RDLs, maybe even good mornings in some capacities, we just don't want there to be a lot of spinal flexion extension because the risk of injury just isn't worth it. Well, there are certain instances where we can add in intentional spinal extension and flexion, but we have to be very, very cautious with how we add that in. It has to be very, very controlled. So you can do it on hyperextensions, you can do it on reverse hyperextensions. I've seen people do it on good morning variations. I've done it on good morning variations. Some of these are very, very advanced because there's going to still be a loading component to it. I wouldn't recommend that for most people, especially most people that don't have a lot of body awareness and coordination. Almost everyone will be able to do this variation though, and this will teach you how to feel your spine flexing and extending around a pivot point. So the first thing to do is forget that you have to keep your low back absolutely locked in neutral or slight extension. We don't need that. So how do we get around that? Well, we have to try and form a roundness to our spine. It's gonna be a little bit difficult for most people to do it because you have to actually relax. You have to allow that to happen. But if we do, we can get in this position and we can allow our low back, our lumbar, to actually wrap around the ball. It doesn't seem like much, but whenever you're here and you're wrapping around the ball, you actually do get some spinal flexion and you can extend up. So this is a very small movement pattern, a very small range of motion, but it actually hammers home what we're looking for from this pattern. Flexion, so wrapping your body, wrapping your spine around the ball. Extension, coming back up and doing the opposite. So you can do sets of 10, 15, 20 reps here, absolutely zero, pretty much zero risk of injury because it's not loaded, but you're getting a ton of stress and a ton of work for your spinal erectors independent of anything else. So if I want to do that here, I can think about getting a good wrap around the ball, extending up. Wrap my body around the ball, extend up. And again, that doesn't look like much. You can do this on anything. You can put this on the floor. You can have a partner hold your heels while you're doing it. You can make it a little bit heavier. You can hold load. But general premise there is unlocking your spine. You need to be able to feel what that is and how it actually feels whenever you're performing that. Because if you can do that, you can strengthen your spinal erectors so that that carries over into whenever you're doing something like a good morning, a squat, bent over row, an RDL, and you need to lock everything down. Well, now your spinal erectors are much stronger. They can maintain that posture much better, and they are much healthier long term.